Hi, everyone. So, I imagine that many of us today are feeling disheartened, if not outright distressed, frightened, sad, uh, disgusted, angry. I mean, I imagine that there are many emotions that are being cycled through at this moment in time. And I know that I have been experiencing all of those emotions this morning as well. Um, and feeling a little disillusioned. Um, so, you know, the reading that I did leading up to the election was one of hope and of coming together and of the archetypal nurturance of the mother, which I misinterpreted. I clearly attributed that to a female leader. Um, and I think what it's going to come down to now is to find that level of mothering and nurturance amongst one another in our communities, and maybe within ourselves, doing a lot of I actually have been doing that this morning. Calling upon my divine mother, my internal mother, to comfort and soothe the frightened inner child. But I did want to, consult the cards and ask Spirit earnestly what can be done now moving forward, what we can do to support one another and to I don't know. I'm at a loss. So that's why I thought I would do this. I thought I would record it so that I can share it with others in the hope that it might be helpful. So I'm asking the question as well, right? I'm asking for all of us. What is it that we would do well to know or to take action on, or maybe inaction? I'm not even sure what will be most helpful for us to know, understand, or do in order to support ourselves and each other in what feels like a very dire time. So that's my question. I'm going to go silent. I'm going to concentrate while I shuffle. Be with you momentarily. I'm just going to say a prayer. Yeah, I mean, so the message is interesting. And so first off, when I was shuffling, or this guy jumped, this was one of the cards that came up in my pre-election reading. And what seemed to be coming through the message of this card was this fervent desire to hold on to power and to money and to hoard resources at the top. This is really what we're experiencing right now. The moneyed class had a lot to do with the outcome of this election, and the outcome, not surprisingly, I'm always these archetypes are so powerful and represent, it's so let's talk about the archetypal energy of the emperor. Because an emperor could be a benevolent leader, one who seeks to be a kind of father to those they are governing. But the emperor can also be a tyrant, an absolute rule over others. And, obviously, I think this is the fear of many of us, that there will be a tyrannical ruling that comes through the presidency as it is, as we're going into it, that there have been a lot of allusions to just an unfathomable sort of outcome in terms of, squashing, oppressing any kind of opposition, and threats of violence even. I think that phrase, the enemy within, was terrifying to hear, from the mouth of this person. There is this, seed that has been planted, that, again, anyone who opposes the powers that be will be vilified and silenced. And it's anyone's guess as to how that's going to play out. Time will certainly tell. But we're definitely looking at some intense power struggles, some energy of domination, of suppression, of wanting to devour anyone who is not in line with the ruling class, which is the moneyed class. And yet, okay, so I'm gonna, and again, not surprisingly, these are wounds. What we're looking at are relational wounds. And okay, so I'm gonna expand this. Personal relationships become societal relationships. And ultimately, I think part of the reason why we are where we are today is that we've been ignoring the needs of the many, that there is a vast majority of people who've been disenfranchised, not just by this administration that's entering into office, but previous administrations that professed to be on the side of the people and yet ignored their needs entirely. So that can only go on for so long before there is incredible division and strife within society. That a secure attachment in an individual, what it does is it gives rise to a healthy sense of self and an ability to collaborate with others. So when you're a child who's raised in a safe environment where the parents foster your curiosity and show that you elicit a sense of joy and delight in them just for your very being, what happens is, as individuals, we internalize this sense of safety, which allows us to go out and explore our purpose and explore our curiosity and find our creativity and collaborate with others. Like, the studies are just undeniable in showing that kids who grow up in with a secure attachment know how to interact with one another and facilitate those types of qualities within their relationships. So there's a sense, like, in other words, my celebrating your interests and curiosities in the world, your unique point of view, does not in any way diminish my sense of self. This is what a secure attachment does. It allows us to witness one another and celebrate one another, including our differences. And it's not threatening. It doesn't feel unsafe to foster that kind of community. But when we grow up in traumatized households, which absolutely, that trauma, for many people, one of the root causes of it is financial instability, the inability to generate the necessary resources in order to care for our families appropriately. That when there is anxiety and instability in society, there is anxiety and instability that enters into the parent-child relationship. And that creates a kind of insecurity where the opposite happens. When children grow up, they're fearful. They are trepidatious. They don't know who to trust. They aren't as open to collaboration. It feels tenuous or threatening to be vulnerable in the face of others. There's just this uncertainty that gets created that doesn't foster community. And when a vast majority of people are feeling this kind of insecurity, this kind of disenfranchisement, this kind of exile, that's when the tyrants take over, right? That's when it's easy for them to sow these seeds of division. And then that becomes a mechanism of control, to pit people against one another and not see the truth, which is that it's the moneyed class that's pulling the strings at the top. Okay, so what do we do about all that? Because here we are, right? And again, this is a wave that's been building long before this election. So Spirit is saying that the way to balance the scales is through feminine expression, the queen energy. Okay, so let's talk about this as an archetype. Again, this idea that the masterful feminine energy is that of nurturance. Again, we're just going to talk about this in terms of archetypes, right? So I am not making any kind of gender assignment here in terms of like, this is how women should be, or only women are this way. In fact, what I'm going to suggest is that regardless of how you identify in terms of gender, finding your inner divine feminine is going to be the way that we are able to usher in a more equitable society and to feel safer and more nurtured within ourselves and within our relationships, and then society as a whole. That in order to balance out the tyranny of this emperor energy, and that's what Spirit's showing us, that we have to call upon the archetypal energy of the mother, the divine mother, the ideal mother, not the traumatized, frazzled mother who maybe did the best that she could, but was not an adequate nurturer. And that's true for many of us, right? So this is about calling on the ideal mother who can see the suffering of her children and offer them comfort and soothing in the form of sensitive attunement, right? Really understanding and loving those deep emotional expressions that so many of us are feeling right now. This kind of overwhelming compassion, like the ideal mother, when her child is crying, she's not aversive to it, and she's not angry about it. She welcomes that child in to be comforted and soothed. Let me hold you in this state of sadness or distress that you're in. I'm just going to hold you. We're just going to be in this together, right? That's the mark of a loving mother. And then the mother, once the child has come back into a state of co-regulation, of emotional regulation through co-regulation, and that comes through this sort of loving, compassionate, tolerant of the full spectrum of emotions, open-hearted, encouraging these emotional expressions and not shutting them down. That is the energy of the Queen of Cups. Then she can begin to encourage creative exploration. What can we do? How can we come together and encourage one another to look to the fire within and go out in the world and plant seeds of fostering life force in ourselves, in each other, in the environment? How can we be good stewards of the land? This is a whole other thing about like becoming mothers and honoring the mother that is the earth, right? If we are feeding at the breast of Mother Earth and she is providing us with water and food, how can we take in some of that mothering energy and direct it back towards her, and to understand that this kind of nurturance is how we foster equity in society and feel fed. Again, these are sort of the archetypal energies that I think Spirit is asking us to call upon, to orient towards, in order to help balance out some of this intense power iniquity that we are seeing as a result of these actions that have been taken over time. Remember, justice is the karma card. It is an acknowledgement that we live in a cause and effect universe. So these are not just actions that came out of, or reactions that came out of nowhere. It is an equal and opposite, or an equal energy to all the choices that have been made going up till this time. In fact, one might imagine that we've been on this path for some time. I can think of, in my lifetime, I was born in 1972, and I lived through the 80s. And although I was a young child, what I saw and experienced was this move towards this neoliberal kind of attitude, where we worshiped at the altar of money and finance, and that banks took over everything, and corporations were considered people, and deregulation of everything, which took money away from the general populace and put it in the hands of investment bankers, who then collapsed the economy in 2008. I mean, again, this has been building and building and building trickle down economics has only created these experiences of financial inequity and instability that have created a kind of traumatized society where it is hard for us to see how cooperation might be our salvation. And this is all coming to a head now. We're being asked to look at all of this, to consider it all, and to find this motherly energy wherever we can, mothering ourselves, nurturing one another, finding compassion and tolerance for all the people who are going to be affected by the outcome of this election. But again, this is a continuance of actions, of choices that have been being made over the decades. And what I can hope from this message is that there might be some balancing of the scales, that if we continue to set the intention towards caring for one another and caring for the earth, that maybe we can find some justice. I don't know. That's the message that's coming through. I am wishing all of you well. I'm sending you love and support, and just know that I too am grieving, and I wish you all well.